Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. This one is going to be relatively short, but I did want to talk about it. I heard a few people bitching and complaining about the book Fast and Furious. Not Fast and Furious, I'm sorry. The Fast and, what is this called? Fast and, oh, Fire and Fury. The book on Trump, saying that it was unfair, saying it was gossipy, saying that they were essentially taking a club and hitting drum with a club. All of that is true. Doesn't mean that everything in a book is false. And there's some things in a book that logically line up and logically make sense. Meaning, as you look at the campaign, you say, there's no way. Why on earth isn't he doing it? That makes no sense. And then as you read the book, it starts to piece it together. And you're like, oh, okay. Even if everything in the book isn't true, the person who this book describes comes through. I mean, it's not like you look at Donald Trump and you say to yourself, this is a completely different person than I see. You know, the person described in the book is a completely different person than I see. No, they look the same to me. Now, people would make this case of, well, everybody would like to kind of pile on and agree for somebody they don't particularly like. And that's true. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the items in the book is wrong. Donald Trump lies continuously. If Donald Trump said that he never talked to this guy, then that's a lie. If Donald Trump said that the guy didn't have access to all the people around him, that, of course, also is a lie. There's a section of this that I want to read that I think is amazing and that I think explains a lot. At least explains a lot to me that I didn't fully piece together. For those of you who think this is unfair, meaning the book is unfair, the book is too brutal, the first African-American president took office, and as that first African-American, I guess, candidate for president, or the best chance for president, let's call him president, as he was running in the primaries, Hillary Clinton released a footage or a picture of Obama in his kind of African garb. Racists jumped on us, screaming that he was from Kenya and that he wasn't an American citizen. Now, this is stupid on its face. This is stupid for a few reasons. Obama's mom was American. Even if his dad was not, he would still be an American citizen by American law. The second point is, he was born in Hawaii. Hawaii is a state. It takes a massive jump of the shark to say that the man is Kenyan, and then to take the extra step of calling him Muslim and all this other stuff. There is no legitimacy to this. There is no evidence to this. The only reason somebody would do this is because somebody was looking for a club to hit him with. And yeah, it's a bit racist. I'm sorry. Or at the very least, it's a hell of a dog whistle if I'm given a massive amount of benefit of the doubt. In the same way that people look at the Russiagate thing and hate Donald Trump, so they don't necessarily need to interrogate whether or not the Russiagate thing is true. They just say Russiagate, Donald Trump colluded with Russia, and they're just off to the races. Don't need to interrogate it because it's Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. It was the same thing for elements of people who hated Obama. Donald Trump was one of those people. And Donald Trump ran with this birther thing, forcing, cajoling the first African-American president of the United States to abide by a standard that wasn't set by any other president, meaning having the indignity of having to show the press corps his birth certificate to prove that he was an actual American citizen. I give two shits about whether Donald Trump thinks that this book is unfair. I give two shits of what Donald Trump thinks about this book at all. The person who is described in this book is the person that I see. You can say some of the stuff, you know, maybe confirmation bias and everything else. I am going by what I read in the book, and it logically follows. Now, I'm not necessarily saying everything in the book is true. I'm not going that far. I will say the part that I am going to read I think is true because I think it makes sense. Everybody essentially looking at Trump as an idiot. I don't know if this is true. I can believe it. I could see it. I mean, the man puts together sentences like he's a 3-year-old. People in the book making the point that Donald Trump acts like a child. Again, I can see it. I think it's somewhat self-evident. Donald Trump seeing this book and coming out saying that he's a genius is comical and ridiculous, and just gets across how thin of a skin that he has. The man is president of the United States. He attacked Obama saying the man wasn't even an American citizen, and then turned around on top of saying he wasn't an American citizen, saying, well, the birth certificate that he showed wasn't the right birth certificate, and I want to see his college records now. I don't believe this black man was able to go to school, at least not Harvard. there weren't people celebrating when the towers fell. Trump didn't have the largest press thing or the largest inauguration crowd. Those ridiculous. All of these things were utterly ridiculous. Joe Scarborough didn't murder his intern. Again, that is somewhat ridiculous. What's his name? Didn't murder JFK. Ted Cruz's dad didn't murder JFK or granddad. Whatever. He spins these wild and ridiculous tales. And somebody write a book showing the background of what was taking place in the campaign, what was taking place on election day, and what was taking place in the presidency of Donald Trump. And it is as chaotic and as ridiculous as you would imagine. Unfair has nothing to do with it. This is the world and this is the bed that Donald Trump built. He just has a lie in it. This particular part in the book is awesome to me, and it explains why he called this book Fire and Fury. I'm not going to read the entire part, but what it boils down to is he's right here. I'll just read this. This is election day. The Trump campaign had, perhaps less than inadvertently, replicated the scheme from Mel Brooks's The Producers. In that classic Brooks, larcenous, and dopey heroes, Max Bistock and Leo Bloom set out to sell more than 100% of the ownership stakes in the Broadway show that they were producing. I'm sorry, this lettering is really tiny. Since they will be found out only if the show is a hit, everything about the show is premised on it being a flop. Accordingly, they create a show so outlandish that it actually succeeds, thus dooming our heroes. Now, I've said before that I don't think Donald Trump thought he was going to win. I think the most surprised person on election night was Donald Trump himself. And that is essentially what the book gets across, at least for the election night. Winning the presidential candidates driven by hubris or narcissism or preternatural sense of destiny have more than likely spent a substantial part of their careers, if not lives, from adolescence preparing for the role. They rise up the ladder of elected offices. They perfect a public face. They manically network, since success in politics is largely about who your allies are. They cram. Even in the case of an uninterested George W. Bush, he relied on his father's cronies to cram for him. And they clean up after themselves, or at least take great care to cover up. They prepare themselves to win and to govern. The Trump calculation, quite conscious one, was different. The candidate and his top lieutenants believed they could get all the benefits of almost becoming president without ever having to change their behavior or their fundamental worldview one whit. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to be anything but who we are and what we are, because of course we won't win. Many candidates for presidents have made a virtue of being Washington outsiders. In practice, the strategy merely favors governors over senators. Every serious candidate, no matter how much he or she disses Washington, relies on Beltway insiders for counsel and support. But with Trump, hardly a person in his innermost circle had ever worked in politics at the national level. His closest advisors had not worked in politics at all. Throughout his life, Trump had few close friends of any kind. But when they began his campaign for president, he had almost no friends in politics. The only two actual politicians to whom Trump was close were Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie, and both men were in their own way peculiar and isolated. And to say that they knew nothing at all, about the basic intellectual foundations of the job was a comic understatement. Early in the campaign, in producers-worthy scene, Sam Newberg was sent to explain the Constitution to the candidate. I got as far as the Fourth Amendment before his fingers was pulling down his lip and his eyes are rolling back in his head. Almost everybody on the Trump team came up with the same messy conflicts bound to bite the president or his staff. Mike Flynn, Trump's future national security advisor, who became Trump's opening act at campaign rallies and whom Trump loved to hear complain about the CIA and the haplessness of American spies, had been told by his friends that it would not be a good idea to take $45,000 from Russians for a speech. Well, it would only be a problem if he won, he assured them, knowing that there would not be a problem. They had no intention of winning. Paul Manafort, the international lobbyist and political operative who Trump retained to his campaign to run his campaign after Lewandowski was fired, and who agreed not to take a fee, amping up questions of quid pro quo, has spent 30 years representing dictators and corrupt despots, amassing millions of dollars in a money trail that had long caught the eye of U.S. investigators. What's more, when he joined the campaign, he had been pursued. He was being pursued, his every financial step documented, by the billionaire Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, who claimed he sold $17 million from him in a crooked real estate scam. For quite obvious reasons, no president before Trump and few politicians ever come out of real estate business, a lightly regulated market based on substantial debt with exposure to frequent market fluctuations. It often depends on government favor and is preferred exchange currency for problem cash, money laundering. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Jared's father, Charlie, Trump's sons, Don Jr. and Eric, and his daughter, Ivanka, as well as Trump himself, all supported their business enterprises to a greater or lesser extent, working in dubious limbo of international free cash flow and gray money. Charlie Kushner, to whose real estate business interests Trump's son-in-law and most important aide was wholly tied, had already spent time in federal prison for tax evasion, witness tampering, and making illegal campaign donations. Modern politicians and their staff perform most consequential piece of opposition research on themselves. If the Trump team had vetted their candidate, they would have reasonably concluded that heightened ethical scrutiny could easily put them in jeopardy. But Trump pointedly performed no such effort. Roger Stone, longtime Trump political advisor, explained to Steve Bannon that Trump's psychic makeup made it impossible for him to take such a close look at himself. Nor could he tolerate knowing that somebody else would then know a lot about him, and therefore have something over him. And anyway, why take such a close and potentially threatening look? Because what were the chances of winning? We're not going to win. What does it matter? What's the point in opposition research on myself if we don't have a chance of winning? Not only did Trump disregard the potential conflicts of business deals and real estate holdings, he audaciously refused to release his tax returns. Why should he if he wasn't going to win? What's more, Trump refused to spend any time considering, however hypothetically, transition matters, saying it was bad luck, but really meaning it was a waste of time. Nor would he remotely contemplate the issue of holdings and conflicts. He wasn't going to win, or losing was winning. Now, what he means by that is, even if Trump lost, he would be it's like somebody told him that the easiest way to get into television is to run for president. Even if you lose your business holding, you would be famous, more famous, I would imagine. And in being more famous, you have this, there are people who are working with you will get jobs in television. You yourself may get some kind of kickback by starting, let's say, Trump Television. At one point, they were talking about Steve Bannon will become de facto head of the Tea Party movement. Kellyanne Conway will be a new cable star. Reince Priebus and Kate Walsh will get their Republican Party back. Melania Trump could return inconspicuously to lunching. That part is funny. Melania Trump could return to inconspicuously lunching. That's fucked up. There was a trouble-free outcome that awaited November 8th, 2016. Losing would work out for everybody. Shortly after 8 o'clock that evening, when the unexpected trend Trump might actually win seemed confirmed, Don Jr. told a friend of his that his father, or Donald Trump, oh, Jesus Christ, the writing in this is horrible. Shortly after 8 o'clock that evening, when an unexpected trend Trump might actually win seemed confirmed, Donald Jr. told a friend that his father, or DJT as he called him, looked as if he had seen a ghost. Yeah, the writing in this is not good. I mean, they have these like weird punctuation and everything else. Basically, what he's trying to say is, when it dawned on him that, oh my God, I might win this, he looked like he had seen a ghost. It freaked him out. Melania, who Donald Trump had made a solemn guarantee, was in tears and not of joy. Donald Trump had told her, look, your life is not going to change because we're not going to win. I promise. Amazing. There was, in the space of a little more than an hour, In Steve Bannon's not unamused observation, a befuddled Trump morphing into a disbelieving Trump, and then into a quite horrified Trump. But still to come was the final transformation. Suddenly, Donald Trump became the man who thought he deserved to be and was wholly capable of becoming President of the United States. Part of the thing, the reason they call the book Fire and Fury, is because Donald Trump, realizing or believing full well that he thought he was going to lose, and believing so fervently that he started padding the runway, essentially saying, oh, they're cheating, they're rigging it, they're going to rig it, they're going to rig it, they're going to rig it like they rigged it with Bernie Sanders, they're going to rig the election. Well, he's saying that because he wants to lose. If he loses, he doesn't want to lose and look bad in the loss. He wants to be able to say, well, they cheated, that's the only reason why I lost. That's why. I mean, if you remember, he did this. There's no other reason a person would do that. A, unless they were being cheated. That's the first point. But mind you, he wasn't being cheated. And B, if he believes that he's going to lose, and he's such a shallow, horrible person, that he's going to attack the apparatus itself in that loss. Like, it's one thing if you're being actually cheated, and Bernie Sanders calling out cheating, something to that effect. That's different. It's another thing when at no point do you think you're going to win. When the conversations that you're having with your family and your inner circle is calling it a quote-unquote broke dick campaign. Everybody's calling the guy stupid, and everybody's calling the guy not that bright. They're even questioning his mental sanity. Nobody thought he was going to win that election. Nobody more than Donald Trump thought he was going to win that election. Steve Bannon thought he might have had a chance, but Steve Bannon was looked at as being somewhat kooky and somewhat of a quack. Well, Steve Bannon ended up being right. This makes it more embarrassing. A reality show host that full well believed that there was no capacity for him to win the election won, beating the only person in the United States that he could beat, won Hillary Rodham Clinton. What does that say about the Democratic Party that they will put up the weakest candidate in the history of candidates to run in their election? And what does it say about the public itself when it regarded Donald Trump, who, mind you, again, didn't even think he could win? The public chose somebody who didn't even want to be president, or at the very least didn't think he could be president, and at the very last moment was like, this is Providence. They chose me, so yes, I could be president of the United States, to the horror of pretty much everybody around him. Look, man, I honestly believe, I was like, there's no way that this guy wants to be president, or there's no way. How can I say this? I didn't think Trump believed he was going to be president. Looking at Trump's reaction after the debates, where he got stuffed and beat on by Hillary Clinton in those debates, looking at the behavior with the tax returns, saying, screw that, I'm not releasing my tax returns. Looking at the loan, there's a part in here where they're talking about needing money in the campaign because nobody is giving Trump money. And in needing money, they're trying to figure out a way to see if he will give his campaign millions of dollars. Now, here it is. Same chapter. Trump had no real relationship with either his father or his daughter. He had only a few conversations with Bob Mercer, who mostly talked in monosyllables at Trump Tower. But when the Mercers presented their plan to take over the campaign and install their lieutenants, Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway, Trump didn't resist. He only expressed vast incomprehension about why anyone would want to do that. This thing, he told the Mercers, is so fucked up. He's talking about his campaign. By every meaningful indicator, something greater than even a sense of doom shadowed what Steve Bannon called the broke dick campaign, a sense of structural impossibility. Not only can we lose, it is impossible. In the same way that the Hillary Clinton campaign was inevitable, Donald Trump took the opposite to be true, that his campaign was impossible, structurally impossible. They both were wrong. The candidate, who billed himself as a billionaire 10 times over, refused to even invest his own money in it. Bannon told Jared Kushner, who then Bannon signed on to the campaign, had been off with his wife on a holiday in Croatia when Trump's enemy, David Geffen, that after the first debate in September, they would need an additional $50 million to cover them until Election Day. No way we'll get 50 million unless we can guarantee him victory, said a clear-eyed Kushner. 25 million, prodded Bannon. If we say victory is more than likely. In the end, the best Trump would do is loan the campaign $10 million, provided he got it back as soon as they could raise other money. Steve Mnuchin, then the campaign finance chairman, came to collect the loan with the wire instructions ready to go, so Trump could conveniently forget to send the money. There was in fact no real campaign because there was no real organization, or at best, only a uniquely dysfunctional one. If you're a billionaire 10 times over in the way that Trump said he was a billionaire, are you telling me you don't have $25 million? Would an actual billionaire actually wink at putting out $25 million? I say this because I've made this point before. You don't know Trump is a billionaire. You're purely taking the word of somebody who lies flagrantly about everything, or about all sorts of shit. He lies as easily as he does breathing. And coming from somebody who had a dad that would be a habitual liar in the same way, I've gotten pretty good at spotting those lies. I say that to say that why on earth would you take Donald Trump's word for it, a guy with an ego that needs to be assuaged, that for the most part lies flamboyantly, as easily as he breathes? Why would you take his word for it? Do you believe that his ego is such that he would lie about being a billionaire in order to puff himself up to make himself look better than what he actually is, because in his mind this is some level of status? Well, the answer is yes. That answer is yes. I do believe that. Do I believe, without seeing his tax returns, that Donald Trump is a billionaire? No, I do not. No, I do not. If Trump was a billionaire, Trump could put out $25 million without batting an eye. It would hurt him in no way if he was an actual billionaire. The catch is, he's not a billionaire. He says these things, and he would never show his tax returns because he understands his tax returns would essentially give up the ghost and get across that he's not what he say he is. So, this book is fascinating. And you can call the book a hit piece, that's fair. You can say that people are going to have confirmation bias, and that's also fair, meaning they look at Donald Trump, they hate the guy's guts. And so anything that punches Trump in the nuts, particularly a book that punches him in the nuts over and over and over and over again, well, they're going to love it. They're going to rub their body in it as it goes on. Fair enough. But you understand that Trump did the exact same thing to Obama, and that the people in the Republican Party, that 30%, in no way wanted to admit that Obama was American, just like them. They didn't want to give him credit for being an American, and ultimately continuously acted like the guy was Kenyan and Muslim. Whether they were stupid enough to actually believe that, they were just saying that because they hated his guts for some particular reason that had nothing to do with anything politically, because they couldn't tell you what his policies were. They couldn't even tell you what he did in that office. But they essentially, racially motivated, went after the guy, calling the guy an ape, a buffoon, going to this thing of him with even going with school records. I mean, come on. Donald Trump did all this. So am I going to be put off by a book that actually goes through Donald Trump's life, using his own quotes and using the quotes around him to take him down a peg? No, I'm not. Do I see it as a hit piece? Yes, I do. Both of those things can be true. Would Donald Trump own up to this? Meaning, would I expect Donald Trump to lie about this book? The answer is yes. Donald Trump comes out with a flamboyant lie that Steve Bannon wasn't a part of this campaign. And that's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. When people are saying that he has mental instability issues and that his intelligence or his mental stability needs to be checked, it's in part because of stuff like that. Trump is his own worst enemy in this stuff. When they came after Obama, Obama for the most part just had to deal. He just had to deal. Obama was a black president. He was very aware that he was a black president, and the last thing that he wanted to do was act a particular way that would allow people to associate certain things that they do with African Americans with him in that office. Donald Trump didn't care. Donald Trump doesn't necessarily have that burden to deal with. So Donald Trump is just Donald Trump. That being said, Donald Trump does have issues with this thing of intelligence, because when you hear the guy speak, he puts 2 or 3 sentences together and you think the guy's a fucking idiot. So that's the book Fire and Fury, or that's a section of the book Fire and Fury. You used to be able to get this for free. WikiLeaks tweeted this out free for some reason, which is a little bizarre. And so when WikiLeaks tweeted it out for free, I essentially got my copy on the PDF of that, and I've been reading through that one. It is, put it this way, I don't know about the mental stability thing. Meaning, there's no way to know if that part is true. The other stuff in the book, so far that I've read, doesn't shock me in the least. It doesn't shock me in the least. It's one of those things of, well, yeah, I kind of assume that. Yeah, he resembles that. And yeah, his public persona pretty much gets that across. So I suspect that other people are going to feel the same way. And I don't necessarily hate Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. And I think in my show, I've been somewhat fair to him, at the very least when I'm reviewing the news. And I think people are taking shots at him or going at him unfairly. But it's a book about Trump. And it's a book that seems immensely familiar based upon the persona that Trump has put out in the public. So I will leave it at that. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Fire and Fury. Oh, yeah, the reason they called it Fire and Fury is because he was going to go down, you know, with fire and fury by saying that they cheated or that Hillary Clinton was going to rig the campaign. They were making a point that by saying that she was going to rig the campaign, it was going to go down in this kind of burning, you know, like a burning star of sorts. In Fire and Fury. That's essentially where the title of the book comes from. So I will leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks guys.